And here we go. So welcome everyone to our September 2025 Innovation Division and Government Division session this evening. You are in for such a treat because you have Miss Paula Schindele with you. She is a master at process improvement, especially with regard to multiple, technologies. She has a varied and deep background across project engineering and many technologies. So she'll be able to help you really build the bridge between your strategy that you might be implementing in your organization from an AI and an automation perspective, as well as help you hone in on what technologies and or what might help you get your process improvement further faster. Again, she has applied PDCA, has a Lean Six Sigma background, ITSM and ITIL, cross-sector from a healthcare as well as a Lean Six Sigma black belt across many different areas. And we are welcoming Paula back from multi-year contributions within our ASQ family. So again, a lifelong learner and mentor, highly belted as a practitioner, and again, a deep knowledge in the technology and applications of its use within many different operating environments. So without further ado, let's welcome to our virtual stage tonight, Miss Paula Schindele.
Thanks, Rhonda. So what I'm going to give a talk on tonight was something that actually started in my organization over a year ago. We started talking about AI last October, November time period. And so the iteration went from a conversation to then how would we bring AI, what would we utilize to bring AI in? And I have some lessons learned even from today that I'll share with you all tonight. But it started with how we wanted to bring it in from my perspective. And one of the things that I pushed pretty hard on was that we utilize an agile methodology for it. And in part that was because still within our organization, there's a lot of even if we're not calling them waterfall projects or we're not trying to label it that way, when you look how the project's laid out, it really is a waterfall project. And I just knew that if we didn't have iterations and if we didn't bring our team along, then we weren't going to be successful. So that's where we started. Change the slide. There we go. So a little bit more background. We had some of our challenges were, again, that
I think you're not sharing. Hold on, Paula. I think you got to reshare.
Have to reshare?
Yes.
All right.
I took it back from your early. There
okay.
you go.
Okay, do we have it now?
You're perfect.
Okay. So a little bit of the background, some of our initial challenges, this is what we're going to go over today. Why we chose to use Agile to implement our AI, our iterative implementation journey, our key outcomes and benefits, some of our lessons learned, and then a framework for your AI project, and then Q&A. All right, so background and initial challenges. There we go. So just a little bit of glossary from the perspective that we have. So in the position I have, which is an EPPL or an engineering program project lead within Sandia, we deal with events, and I've had to learn because I've become so embedded in this group now that for me an event is an occurrence that requires evaluation for DOE reporting. And I forget sometimes because out in casual conversation, when I say I handle events or that's what I do, I've even had people ask if I do weddings and what kind of events I do. And so I've become cognizant that event is not every event is not always seen the same by individuals. When we look at our events, some important times and important information for us is we look at discovery. And so a discovery is when a cognizant manager becomes aware of an event. And that's very important in our timeline about that being a cognizant manager, because until that occurs, we don't consider the event discovered. And you'll see later where that becomes more of a factor. But that's one of the things for us to keep in mind. A reportable occurrence is something that has to meet our criteria per DOE Order 232.2A and requires a formal notification to the DOE. We have something that we also came up with, and this is unique for Sandia, and we call them a note or a non-occurrence trackable event. And this requires we use the same tools to evaluate those, but they don't fall under that DOE order. And then when we produce or we've identified and we're putting out, again, that notification to the DOE, we use something we call a SWNUP, which is just a fancy or a little nomenclature for us to say a Sandia-wide notification process. And we've set these up so that one of those notifications goes to the DOE, and then that satisfies our notification of the DOE. Categorization, so from that time of discovery to categorization, which is a process for us of evaluating and classifying that event based on the DOE criteria, must be within 2 hours. So it's a very tight timeline. And then for us, we have our SFO or our Sandia Field Office, which is our DOE oversight entity. All right. So in our process, what I'm speaking of today, and part of the reason I talked about using Agile and doing iterations is you can see that this is our entire process for event management. And so it goes from, again, that discovery of the cognizant manager and categorization, and then we have that notification piece. And so really it's the top 2 boxes we're talking about today. But one of the things we also would like to do with this project is evaluate and understand where AI could benefit us, and also our fact finding, which is the initial meeting we have after a notification. And then that lends itself into the causal analysis. And that's then a subsequent meeting where we look at the why. The fact finding is how does this happen? The causal is more why it happened. And then we go into the corrective actions which come out of the causal. And then we have a verification and validation of corrective actions. And that's another team as well. And so just imagine if we could have all of these with an oversight or an AI component that could help with metrics, that could help with understanding the timelines in between, could help produce or pull those facts into the next area for reporting. It's large possibilities. So when we think of these things, when I first got into this group, I thought, okay, so we have all of this stuff. What does it take to make this happen? And so because of my background, the first thing I did is I started reading the manuals, and I took those manuals and I made a process map. And this is our process map. So this all the way across is that whole process that I showed in the previous slide. And as I said, we narrowed the scope of this initial piece of our process to just notifications. And so you can see that that red box is just notifications. And even that is a lot of steps to try to successfully get done in a 2-hour time period to get that notification of categorization out to our DOE. And so anything we can do to help that team and to help them with not only the speed or the timeliness of this, but also the accuracy and the standardization of this process is going to be nothing but helpful, right? All right, so when we look again, that's that segment of the notification piece on the left. And on the right is when we look at event reporting and what we're talking about. We have from the time that the member of the workforce reports an event, and we call them environment, safety, and health event through our eShield, and that's just our platform or a 311 call. And that can initialize it. And again, that's because that cognizant manager is now aware. And then it goes into our group, our notifications group. They make phone calls. They look at what they need to call the person who reported the event. They may need to call what we call the accountable manager, which most of the time is that cognizant manager who became aware of it. They may have to call the coordinator in that area, contact subject matter experts. And again, all of this is in that 2-hour time frame. And again, we end with that getting that determination out and having that go out to the DOE. So the little stopwatch on there says it all, but the time starts ticking, right? Just a brief overview on the categorization. Come on, there you go. And so our categorization, we have reportable occurrences, and those are the ones that we put out. Then what we call, again, that split up email is an initial email sent to the stakeholders, leadership, and SFO, and that must be within 2 hours. And when I say leadership for us, that goes all the way to the top leader of Sandia National Labs. And so again, there's another reason, and it's not that we wouldn't always want them correct, but to make sure that all the information in there is spot on, and that simple things too, right? We're looking to not have typos in there. We're looking that somebody put information that's correct and they haven't jumped the gun and made assumptions yet, because we really do only have that 2 hours worth of information on that event as it's occurred. And then again, the non-occurrence or the notes are sent to stakeholders, leadership, and SFO also, but they're not under the same scrutiny for being sent to or put in the DOE ORP system. And so generally what happens, a reporting specialist evaluates the known information and consults with the accountable manager and the appropriate SMEs to make those categorizations. So when we started looking at this, and so this isn't a new problem for us, and we started back probably 5 years ago, and we used a tool called Enable-On, and we've called it eShield because we personalized it for Sandia with its naming. But again, that team also was looking at this spectrum of stops or milestones in our process and trying to help understand where we needed that information and then how that platform at the time could help us. And so you can see that there's a lot that happens in this first triage piece, and it doesn't mean that the other pieces aren't as important. They have their own importance to them, but they have longer timelines, and there's more of an ability to put more information in and have, I guess, an ease of time to get that information in there and get it done before the reporting, because with most of our report outs, once we have the initial notification, we have generally 60 days to get then the ORPS report in for most reports, for a final, for a high, and for non-highs, it's 10 days, 10 business days. But again, that's a lot longer than the initial 2 hours. So again, some of our current challenges that we're dealing with is complex reporting requirements across multiple systems, because we have, I just barely touched on it, but we have the eShield system that we deal with. We also have a system that we self-built called SwinUp, and I'll show you that in a couple slides. And then we have the DOE reporting. So our notifications have to go through those three, and then we also have an truly on-prem Excel worksheet that we also use to help understand our work. And so we're dealing with 4 different areas to have that information. And with some of those, we may have duplicate or triplicate entry of the same information. So again, that was one of the factors looking in how we could improve this process. We also have inconsistent understanding of reportable events. And rightly so, some of these take what we call a buddy check, where we look at the DOE order and help understand what the categorization should be for it, and call in SMEs and call in those subject matter experts. But one of the things we also do is we self-look through past events to see if there was anything similar. So again, one of those things that just lends itself to, wouldn't AI be nice to be able to comb that database for us and bring forward similar events? And staffing notification is a resource intensive process. It comes with a lot of burnout, especially in our high use times, which are primarily summer And then we have another dip, we have a diurnal dip in there, but that team gets pretty worn out because it's not just the categorization. It's all of the phone calls. It's dealing with managers who are already dealing with an event. And so, yeah, it's a bottleneck, or it's a worrisome thing for that group to have burnout. And again, it's a manual process causing bottlenecks and delays. We have a disconnected workflow between discovery and notification, and difficulties meeting our 2-hour DOE categorization requirement. We also have limited visibility into our compliance metrics because of it and because of the different systems that we're in. So one thing we did is when we're looking at this 2 hours, and again, as I spoke to it earlier, we have that understanding that we have to know about it. So the cognizant manager knows about it, but at that point, we don't necessarily know about it in my group, right, with the notifications team. So one of the things we did this year is we looked at going out to the Gemba, so to speak, and talking with our line partners and letting them know what we were dealing with and what we were doing. And part of that conversation, this is one of the slides we use in a slide deck where we go out and have these conversations, was to talk about that 2 hours, because previously to this iteration of going out and seeking that support, we had spoken about, everyone knows the 2 hours and are familiar with that 2 hours. But my belief is that everyone thought that they owned the whole 2 hours. There wasn't necessarily an appreciation that the 2 hours is a solid timeline owned by several different groups along it, and that we all have to work together to meet it. And so when we would go out and speak to the line about these things, we encouraged and let them know that we were a resource, because what we also found was sometimes our line partners were making some of the same phone calls that we would make when we got a hold of the event. And so really encouraging them that your one requirement is to call us and our team will do the rest. We'll make the phone calls. And also of note is, when we put out that SWIN-UP email, we never put out a SWIN-UP email without the accountable manager being aware of and seeing what's going to be put out basically in their name, right? Because I said, again, that's a broad spectrum that we send those notifications out, going all the way up to the top of Sandia and senior leadership. And so we want them to also know what's going to be said about their group and about the event that's occurring in their area. When we started in FY24, we were at a 47% of the line calling those events in within half an hour. And this shows us at 59, and I believe we're at 62% right now with having that time frame. And so we are improving. We're still far away from our 90% target, but we're getting there. And again, the first part of this was getting them to call. So now we'll look at our tool support. And I alluded to some of this earlier, but this was our Enable On tool, which we call eShield, and it was trying to be everything for everyone in this tool, and not just for notifications, but it was also looking to make sure that all of the different areas, industrial, hygiene, electrical, that everybody was also getting notifications out of it. And it is a good tool still. It's a good solid tool. But as you can see with some of the cutouts that I have from the tool itself, there's a lot of fields to fill in here, and a lot of places where there's decision making and do you do this time? And even something as simple as putting the time in is a two space area for them to put it in. So they have to put the date and then the time, and then you have to scroll through to find the time. So all of these things, if you think about that 2 hours, that time is ticking by while they're trying to get this done. It does have a nice flow of showing where your work is, but that we felt in the beginning sounds really nice until you're up against those time constraints. And then at the end of the day, it really didn't do as much for the team as they would have needed from it. And so one of the things that happened, and I think frequently happens in areas, is we developed what some may call shadow IT, meaning that we built an on-prem application to do what we wanted it to do. so we had invested already money into the eShield Enable-On platform, but as it wasn't meeting needs, we built an on-prem application that did more of what we needed. And you can see this one's laid out much more cleanly. There's still some manual data entry, but some of it comes across automated. And then the fields, and only the fields that we need for categorization, and you can see even the tab is titled SwinUp, are in this first tab. And then it can handle the rest of the causal analysis as it goes through and the fact finding. But this first tab and everything in it only deals with the SwinUp. And so that has been a benefit to the team. It doesn't have all of the capabilities, and at this point, it doesn't have an AI connection. But it also did another thing for us in that when we looked at an AI capability, we found that if we tried to use the Enable-On application, we would have, because it's a COTS product, so a commercially off-the-shelf product, we would have to go through that vendor to understand and to get AI integrated into it. And with us being Sandia National Laboratory, we are very careful not to have our information go outside of our facility. And so that wasn't going to be an option. But because we had this renegade shadow IT and SwinUp, we had a platform that we could actually use to try to get an AI solution. And so, as I was saying at the beginning, when we talked about at first last October, kind of kicking around this idea, what could we do with AI? And at that time, we had Sandia AI on site where we had something we could play with, but it didn't have the capabilities we wanted. And also, we wanted something that would just ingest the DOE order for us, and we could have a large language model off of that. And so when we looked at that, it wasn't going to handle our needs. But at the time, we were building something we're calling Atlas, which is an AI assistant. So it's fully on-premise, conversational assistant. It searches proprietary Sandia data with outsourced citation, supports custom assistance for a specific domains and workflows, and it's tailored to individual customer needs, which meant we found somebody who would work with us in the IT world, and that developer was helping us to build a custom application for ourselves for what we needed for notification. And with that, we also were able to use what we call a Surety Host AI microserver. And so that could in-source the NLP tools for our hosting AI model and have REST APIs within it. And so we had a solution. So the first part of this was looking at the initial process flow and also setting up our team. So now we thought we had a way to do this. Excuse me. And so there was a path forward, and again, I was given the name of somebody who could work for us on the IT side. And so now we looked at building our team and looking at what that categorization flow would look like, and realizing that this was truly our first model. But we said, okay, who do we need on the team? And the first was our notifications team. And so we made sure that we brought them on. And then we also brought in the people who do for us the fact finding and the causal analyst parts of the process. We brought them in as well. We brought representation from them as well, because we wanted to make sure as this flowed across that not only we were getting the information that the notifications team would need and getting it in a way that was useful for them, but that the product of it and the information from it would also help flow down to the fact finding and then ultimately the causal. So this was our first wireframe. And we are far away from Calypso now, but you can see our SwinUp database is there and our Atlas is there and a Milvus database, and then our analysts coming into this. And this was our first real look at how we could make this real for ourselves. In hindsight, some of the things we should have done, we were focused on the AI, and somebody counseled us this not too long ago, but with a normal, well, heck, with any normal process, right? if you're looking to improve your process, what is the first thing you do? And the first thing you would do is say, what is my problem? What problem am I trying to solve? And we did that, but then we jumped to a solution. And so we didn't go through some of our normal processes for our IT world. And in our IT world, one of the things we have is what we call a solutions delivery lifecycle process. And that would have taken us through asking a lot of questions. And so we still potentially would have had this first wireframe, but we already would have been asking questions about, we know we had the Atlas that was given, but is Calypso the right way? And then we had looked at using a different format of Python coding in it. And instead of, some of them were lessons learned for us, but not all of them had to be lessons that we learned the hard way. Some of them, if we had followed our own process, we could have learned in a more productive way, or could have had the right people at the table at the right time to bounce some of this off of, so that we could have moved potentially a little bit faster and a little bit cleaner than we have. But we still got there. So this is our first prototype. Not very visually pretty, but it does everything we asked it to do so far. What happens is, and I think I can, yes, I can bring my cursor over. Okay, so what happens is when still we have that the event notification comes in through our 311 process, or it's manually entered into that system. And from that enable on system, it's brought over, excuse me, into our SwinUp. So that again is our on-prem site. And then this our prototype ingests that record here. You can see where that event is ingested. And then here we didn't appreciate how much this would benefit us, but we can choose our corpus. So we can select how much of our previous data that we've put in there we wanted to choose from when it's coming up with that initial categorization. And the reason this was important is when it's going through 1,000+ records, it can have we found it to have more hallucinations than when we blocked it and did several blocks of that corpus to help it identify that initial categorization. We never changed the large language model. We're always using that llama. And then it comes over here, and so it gives that event summary. And that event summary ultimately is that SwinUp email that goes out to, again, everybody, right? And it's already then in a format that we've pre-selected to have what words should be in it, what words shouldn't be in it, how should it look, what should the cadence of it be. So that's already set in there as well. And then more importantly, it provides us with that classification. So it's an occurrence, the categorization. So it's a personal safety on this one. It's a personal safety and health, this example. And then it's subcategory. So this one would have been an occupational injury and exposure. So it'd be a 2A2. And then one of the things I really enjoy about this is it gives a classification justification. So I told you at the beginning that when we do these, that the team, excuse me, would manually kind of do a word search and look for things that were similar to try to say, oh, we did this before and this seems similar. And so this looks like it would be a good classification for this. This model does that for you. So you have similar events, and then we can look through those and say, yes, they are. And then one of the things that we also added was this chat component in the middle. And this will help the notifications team to say, I don't think you considered that this occurred in this type of an environment, or that this had an electrical component to it. And then it can go back and research the data and give then an updated categorization for the team. So this was our first iteration. One of the things that we found along the way in doing this is there is a product out by the NNSA, and it's called Safer. And so let me show you. This is the Safer platform. Safer safety analytics, forecasting, and evaluation it truly is cutting edge. It truly is cutting edge from my perspective for what we do in my job. when we looked at it, and this was also being built about the same time we were building ours. They have access to all of the records, the ORPS reported records across all of the DOE complex. So more than just our site, right? Any of the sites across there. And then they also built their own AI component in theirs. Some of the things you can do, you can see some of the areas that you can, fields that you have information on. And one of those, and the one that I use, is issues management. And so when I click into issues management, this is what I see. And it's set to my laboratory. So it only brings in, you can see at the top, Sandia National Laboratory would only be brought in. These are the reports that we put into the system. And then right now, we're not putting reports in there. We don't have that capability. But I heard just a couple weeks ago that Lawrence Livermore is starting to use this platform to, so everything we did back there, they're looking to go straight here with all of theirs. I don't know that, we'll see how theirs works. I'm not sure that everyone has the appetite to want to put all of their events in here and not just their ORPS reportable events. But it would be interesting to see, because what I'm able to do now is I can pick from these and I can look for something that we do during our causal, which we call an extent of condition. So how frequent or how often is this type of event seen? This platform does it in seconds. And let me show you just another piece of this. So again, when I look at this, I can also dig down into an event. If it was listed, if we gave them that information, it'll show me a map of where this occurred, the event occurred, gives me greater depth of detail on this. And here's the one I like. Not all of my team's happy about it, but I think it's kind of cool, is it will generate a causal analysis, it'll generate a lessons learned, it'll generate an ORP summary, all with large language model. And so one of the things, if we decide that it's beyond what we would like to do to put all of our events in here, we are looking at how we can also model ours beyond our prototype along the lines of this one, because it has so many of the capabilities that we wanted to see in ours. So here was just an example of the causal analysis, that if you put it in and you ask for the large language model to produce that, it would produce one for you. And as I said, the one I kind of geek out on this one, but this is the extent of condition. So when I bring one in, it can give me a report on the extent of condition. I can pick from it several different events. It will give me that extent of condition. And then it will also, where you see this similarity rank of 9, it will tell me how similar they are. So I have more of an understanding and a confidence in the information and the data it's giving me. So this one is, I'm highly interested in watching how this develops out there. And again, it's in an essay, and I just get excited about this one. So back to our project, some of the things that we've dealt with ours was, and I put that in, I think in one of our beginning questions, is what kind of team concerns are people perceiving with AI? Because some of ours were AI hallucinations, leading to incorrect information. One of the things that we found as we were building ours is by limiting our model to using our past events and not just anything that's out there, it helped us have less hallucinations, because we were just dealing with our data and it wasn't open to anything that was out there. Our accuracy concerns for ORPS categorization and reporting. Some of the ways that we were able to identify that currently today with our human system, we have what we call a buddy check, where we never put a categorization out with somebody else looking at it. And so reminding and bringing that model with us, so that even using the AI, there's still a buddy check. It's never, we never want to move to a place where we would just trust the AI to make that categorization on its own and then put it out to the system. Potential misinformation to line partners was one of our fears also, that we would give them misinformation. Reliability for mission critical notifications. And again, we've talked through some of that with having, again, that buddy check and making sure that we always keep the human in the loop in all the work we do. Our compliance with our DOE reporting requirements, and this one has been helped greatly by the NNSA, again, building that safer model, because they're now exploring more options with AI in their realm that they're doing. And even where we report our ORPs through, they have their own system now where they're running the reports we send through an AI just so that they can help understand categorizations across the complex, right? Not just across Sandia. And then need for explainability. And that's where, if you remember in our prototype, we made sure that we put similar events in there so that we could help explain how we got to the understanding of the categorization we got. When we looked at why agile, and I spoke a little bit about this in the beginning, when we talked about waterfall, we would have a long planning phase, a big bang implementation, delayed feedback, and high risk of misalignment. And also, as we found, even so, and it doesn't seem like that long ago, but from last November, December to today, just how different the field is in AI, and how different when we first started, Safer was out there, but it wasn't what it is today as far as the AI components of it. And so if we were to do a waterfall type project in this environment, by the time we got something out the door, it would already be obsolete. And so agile afforded us to have iterative development, early and frequent feedback, continuous adjustment, and gradual adoption. And it really did make a huge difference for our team to have the notifications team be part of the work. And even, last month we had one of our developers ask to, and we have her in line to sit in and watch one of the notifications as the work is occurring, including those calls to the accountable manager, the seeking additional information, so that she can also help us from the build, understand the work being done, and help work towards that to make that the work easier for the notifications team. Some of our acceptance criteria, this was important for us too. We agreed about this ahead of time, was that the system must support multiple reporting channels. Initial report must capture minimum required information to start the process. The system must timestamp. That was one of the things I had spoken about previously in an earlier slide, is with 4 systems, we have a deficit of metrics on our information. And so we wanted anything we built to help us with that metrics. And this reporting and tracking of the 30-minute metric was going to help us with that, as well as that overall timeline. Reports must be automatically routed to appropriate ES&H specialist, and the system must support the 2-hour categorization workflow. Our analysis of concepts, this is on the left, sort of what we looked like before, right? Reactive rather than proactive, unclear reporting expectations. Training was tough. And what we're looking at with our vision is streamlined digital workflows, mobile-enabled reporting, real-time compliance dashboards, guided categorization assistance, and integrated training and reference materials. So when we talked about our iterative process, this is what we're looking at. As I said, we have the 3 main areas: the enable on input, the manager and SME information, the DOE order, and getting those all synthesized in there so that we could have the categorization and the swing up email. Our agile implementation framework, we still work in 2-week sprint cycles, excuse me. We're using a step-by-step approach to our ORPS categorization assistant, regular accuracy assessments to make sure, checking in with our notifications team that what we're producing or where we're headed with it will meet their needs, and to again alleviate those fears of the hallucination and edge cases, and also having that side-by-side human AI comparison for quality assurance. Our initial test of change was the small one, and it's just looking at that first initial part of notification and of the categorization. And that's going to build for us a foundation of trust as we go into further projects where we would like to look at ways to automate the fact finding and also the causal analysis. And in this process, it was very important for us to make sure we had a cadence of comfort for our team. Because again, I was in a meeting just this afternoon where somebody said, well, I put out something very long and it seems very complicated, but it's what I have for you. They said, I know I could have put it in the AI, but I'm dead set against not doing that. And other people said, oh yeah, me too. And so we still have distrustful mindset around AI and its capability and what it can and can't do for our workplace. And so moving slowly in that respect and making sure that we have our team walk with us, and so that we're doing iterations rather than saying at the end you'll have this big thing, has helped at least the notifications team in this instance be comfortable with the change that we're looking to put in place. So we said that we're here. We're actually a little bit further than we've been there. We again have that prototype. We haven't had the ability yet to put it out for user experience testing. And so that's our next milestone, is to get it out to the team for them to play with it, try to break it, see what they can do with it and their comfort level. And again, having them help us with, are they perceiving that they're getting the correct information from the categorization for their SWNUP? And then the other thing we looked at that we can do now that once we have it in place, we're going to look back on our previous categorizations and with our eyes today, say, given the event, how would we have categorized it? How did we before? And what does the AI, how would it categorize it today? So a form of quality check for ourselves as well. So some of our key benefits of this, finding creative IT solutions, building team trust, creating transparent validation process, starting with side-by-side comparisons, and again, maintaining that human in the loop. This is just some of our metrics that we've realized is we would like to get to this 90%. Again, we're at 56% now, which is pretty good. I think, like I said, I think it's up to 62, but we're definitely seeing an increase in our ability to report in our timeliness of getting those out in the 2 hours. Some of the quotes that we got from our team is that if this works, it will be a game changer in the notification process. This provides standardized and consistent outcomes. This will make my job so much easier. And we have to make sure that our people are in the final say so before the report goes out. Some of our lessons learned, start smaller than you think necessary, address team concerns directly and early. If somebody had something, we've had meetings where we thought we were gonna be on one topic, and if the team had a serious concern, we let that ride out. We had concerns over the sensitivity of information, and it took over an entire meeting, but it was worth it to come to a satisfactory outcome for the team, so that when we move forward, we are moving forward with confidence. Building transparency from day one was huge for us. And then making sure, again, the human oversight. Just briefly, if you were going to do your AI project in this manner, some of the things we said is start small again, build trust through verification, scale with confidence. And key takeaways, agile approach reduces AI implementation risk. Small tests build both technical capability and team comfort. Team involvement creates ownership and adoption, and human oversight remains central to success. And the journey is as important as the destination. And then questions, and Carol Blanche was my sidekick in this. But any questions from this?
We do, so we can just start at the top, please, Paula. So, kind of going back to the top, and I think you really talked about it early on, that human in the loop. How do you make sure that the organization continues to be a learning organization and they don't become overly dependent on AI to do everything for them? So they want to retain that critical thinking capability within their organizational unit. How can they best do that in the age of AI?
For us, it's been maintaining the buddy checks. And it's also been in making sure that when we put that product out, because we know the level of leadership it's going to, there's an ownership to it, and there's making sure, oh, and then the other thing we actually built into the system, I don't think I pointed it out when I showed the prototype, is our individuals have to verify that they reviewed and what they reviewed in the prompt that they're given, so that we make sure that they're interacting with it and not just copy click and copy paste. So with this particular product, that's what we're doing. And with other ones that we've seen, I know that again, we're making sure that we have the human oversight when we're putting this in place. It would be similar to any type of, I think, automation, even outside of AI, that you're making sure it has the human factor as part of it, so that we're confident with the material we're putting out, because ultimately we're going to have to speak to that when it comes back to doing the fact finding, the causal, the reporting out of the ORPS report, and the other things that go along with this type of reporting.
Thank you. That's perfect. I think there's another early comment, right? That one where we said the gentleman was stating they were using deep learning for automation and visual inspection. How might you all be harnessing this deep learning capability of AI?
So I'm not sure if they're using deep learning, but I know when we had a tour of another area, they're using AI in the inspection of, and I want to say it was lenses. And the gentleman who gave us the overview of it said that it was a job that it would use to take him to review a lens with a micro computer microscopic computer, that he would have to review each of the views of it to look for any abnormalities in the lens. And they're using AI now, and I'm not again sure if it was deep learning, but to have the back of log of other ones they've done, they trained it on it. And he said, now I put in a program, I go home, I eat dinner, I come back the next morning, and it shows me key areas to look at. So again, it keeps the human in the loop because he still has to verify them, but he said it has transformed the job he did.
Thank you. Now let's see. So they want to, one of them has a comment with regard to utilization of AI in auditing and quality. And I think you kind of talked about the human in the loop and the verification and the due diligence, but can you speak to a little bit about the auditing and utilization of AI? What's the best practices at this stage, or what are you all doing, and what might be some caveats they need to be considering?
So let me ask a clarifying question. So are we talking auditing of the AI or auditing of the work that we produce?
I think auditing of the work that you produce. So in the case, I think auditing and quality, they're probably talking about any like process auditing or auditing of a technology solution or auditing from an operational or cyber perspective. I'm assuming that's their intent.
So if I'm looking at auditing of the work we're producing, one of the things I'm finding that will be, I'm very excited about, is right now our audit process is only human dependent, right? And someone complained the other day and said, I just don't have enough hours in the day to look at everybody's report to make sure that we're being consistent. And that's where, if we're talking about auditing of our product, I see that this could be huge for us. Like I said, we we can even go back in historical and see if we're being consistent with how we're categorizing and how we're putting out information for our ORPS reporting. If we're talking about auditing the system, that also on the flip side of that then gives us that audit as well, because as the human then reviews those reports, it can give feedback on whether it agrees. And again, going back to the human buddy check, do we agree with what we're seeing? And then looking at the AI application and its large language model to make sure that it's pulling information the way we think it should be correctly. But now we can do larger batches of audited reports, where before, again, one person and doing reports, and is it the beginning of the day? Is it the end of the day? How carefully are you looking? And are you truly matching up a report from today and a report from last year in the same aspect, so that we're making sure that we're being consistent?
That's perfect. Thank you. Okay, now maybe to the quality aspect of Selena's question. You know, you talked a lot about process improvement, and you talked about, you know, process flows and really re-examining everything to do with the end-to-end. Could you talk about how you might have harnessed AI in that capacity, Paula?
To me, the quality that I perceive is the consistency. Because again, when we're looking at the product that we have, it's been a very human judgment heavy process that we're doing. And even today, when we were talking, I was talking with some of the other leads, and I said, yeah, when we're looking at notifications, because we're talking about people rotating through there again, just so that we keep abreast of what's going on. And one of the ladies said, oh, I know, because I'm always waffling. And she said, and then I'll have to bring in like 5 people. And so to me, having the AI give that first, even with having a buddy check past that first, having the AI give the first categorization out there will give us a better quality consistency than we have today, that it is very person dependent, and who trained that person and who was there a year ago when they looked at the same information. So that's where I see our quality just skyrocketing, and our ability to also track it with data, right? To say we would have done this way last year, and this is the way we categorized it this year. And it could be that things change, but then we're making more of an informed decision that way.
Thank you so much. Yes. Okay. So if we look at quality as a organizational unit within Sandia or elsewise, say they wanted to do something similar to what you're doing, how do you feel AI could help guide the next steps for them? I.e., you know, did it help serve you all when you were looking? Did AI help really you target this particular area, or target the use of AI in specific functional capabilities that you deployed?
So I guess if I'm understanding correctly, so it helps from our perspective, from a quality perspective. To me, the standardization and consistency are huge. Also looking at our numbers and the place within our process that most needed the assistance to be more streamlined and also more consistent, and also to have the ability to have confidence in what we were producing for our categorizations for the events that were occurring. And that's where I see our quality piece coming in, because we can have now more confidence in in our product of a categorization and of that timeliness, where before, as I said, we're moving from a very person dependent process to more of an automated standardized process. And that's also part of it too, right? Because instead of it being dependent on how something comes in, it will flow in the same way. It will have the same rigor put to it, and then we'll produce that result.
Thank you. How about, you mentioned early on that you were moving kind of from waterfall more to an agile approach. Could you talk a little bit about still meeting the strict DOE compliance requirements as you matured in this area? How was AI able to help you?
So with some of our strict, so it's interesting that you ask, because we have one of our SFO partners, she's not on the team, but we are in communication with her about this project frequently and what we're doing. So that's one of the ways we've kept them in the loop. But also what we were finding is, or what we have found, so when we built the Enable On platform, one of the things that occurred was we actually built a model for a group, not us, but another group in that system. And it had the best intentions, right? It was built to solve a problem of multi-organizational work orders. It was built with the best intentions from the IT group. We did not keep the business group in the line with it as much as we should have. When it was built, that team continued to do their process the old way, and would just at the very end fill in all the things they thought they had to in the IT system. So we failed. We actually gave them more work than what they had. So when we're looking to build it and we're looking to keep with those, our regulatory compliance, we're making sure that when we're doing this, I've been working with the ORPS reporting team, Felix out of the DOE, to make sure that what we're producing and then looking to at what he's also automating, and we're getting the same type of corroboration of how he would call an ORPS and what his categorizations would be. And that's one of the things that they're also looking at on the DOE side, is when we put our information in, they're just looking and seeing when they put it through their AI system, would it get the same or a similar categorization as we did, and making sure that we cross-check that way.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, so this kind of leads us right into the next one. And, in Sandia's and your journey to move to this more AI assisted reporting mechanism, can you point to maybe a couple of the most significant cultural or organizational challenges, and how you as a practitioner really worked, and leader, right, really worked to help resolve them?
So still working on it. I think one of the big ones was early on, somebody, we were joking, and they said that their retirement fund is labeled 2066 or 2056. Anyway, that's when they plan, and that if they're fortunate, they will never touch AI in that time frame. So that's some of the resistance that we have with some of the teams. So pretty significant. And so it's been bringing it in slowly. It's been doing the agile process and the iteration. It's been, when there is a question about sensitivity of data, putting a whole stop to a meeting and letting us just focus on that until there's a comfort to it again. It is in making sure that if we feel there needs to be a larger buddy check for a while as we move into this, then that's what we'll do until there's a trust and comfort built. Because I think, at least what I perceive is a big part of it is the trust. And also I think that it's going to take my job, and trying to build in that it won't take your job, it'll help you do your job more efficiently, meaning that we can spend more time with the line on other things that they have going on and help them to improve. And that this is just a tool in your toolbox. It's not here to take your seat.
Understand completely. Thank you. That is absolutely perfect. So I think, Paula, we are now reached time. I want to just congratulate you on a phenomenal presentation tonight. Thank you for all the wonderful questions that we had from our attendees, and for you really walking us through this implementation of AI as applied to this very important industry segment, and your own experiences as a practitioner and a leader. So I know that the attendees got a lot out of it. I'm sure you're going to get great feedback on our survey, and we welcome you back in 2026 to share with us the journey that you and your organization are on. I'm just going to share my screen real fast so we can do the closeout. And again, on behalf of the ASQ Innovation Technical Community and our government division, we thank you so much for attending our wonderful presentation with Ms. Paula Schindele. If you are interested in learning more about our team or filling out a speaking proposal, I'll be sending out this deck to you to find out more. And again, our sponsor for this evening on the Innovation Division side is Mr. Tracy Owens, and on the government division side, Ms. Shruti Patel and Mr. Jarrett Perlow. We would love for you to join us again. If you are an ASQ member or not, you can go to My ASQ to join our discussions on all things innovation. You can find out more about innovation from a global perspective if you Google ASQ Insights on Excellence. We have phenomenal research that's being done around the globe and how government divisions as well as innovations are positively affecting many organizations around the world. And then if you're interested in joining ASQ and ASQE, there'll be a link there. We invite you to join us again in October, November, and December as we round out our event year. Next month on October 3rd, you're going to be hearing about how Quincy is redefining excellence with the AI within our own ASQ organization. So again, this is Dr. Rhonda Farrell signing off from ASQ Innovation and Government Division this evening with a wonderful thank you for our guest speaker, Ms. Paula Schindele, and we welcome you back next month for our next events. Good night, everyone. Have a great Friday and a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.